This is a model that was created by a man named David Rock. And he suggests, well, that it's true that we don't face saber-toothed tigers. We don't have to forage for nuts and berries. Our brain perceives rewards and threats in these 5 areas: status, certainty, autonomy, relationship, and fairness. So I'm going to step through these. And while I do, what I want you to do is really consider those 2 reasons that we're talking about this. Both, how is it when you go into a community that you might be perceived as a threat in one of these 5 areas? And also, think about your experience this morning during the charrettes. Was there any feeling of discomfort that might have come from these areas? Because these 5 domains, our brain responds to in exactly the same way as it would if somebody busted in here with a gun. It's the same exact thing. So the first one, status. I thought Jeremy did a very interesting job of laying out the pecking order of engineers. Status is one of those things that you see the possibility of status as a reward, and the potential of loss of status as a threat. It's culturally determined. So status varies wildly among organizations, among different worldviews. Maybe status is a big family, a new car. Maybe you're in charge of the water council. When you see your place in the pecking order is changing, your status is threatened. Consider your own status. When something happens that reflects badly on you or your chapter, your school, like maybe your team is eliminated from the NCAA tournament, go Butler. Does this make sense? I mean, you can feel that. You can feel there is that sense of status, and it's something very real. So let's go on. Certainty. Certainty is the extent to which you know what's going to happen, and your brain loves certainty. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine that's constantly trying to predict the near future. And we all like certainty. Just think, you all have your favorite restaurant, right? Why do you like it? There's lots of reasons. One is that you know what you're going to get when you go. Somebody told me once that McDonald's was the most reliable restaurant there was. That's why it was so popular, because no matter where you go in the world, at least you know what you're going to get. That's an interesting way of thinking about it. But when your brain likes to know what's going to happen. And when you change, it takes more energy. It takes more of that prefrontal cortex for you to process the experience. So it's more challenging. So just imagine, your life is going along. You know the rules. You know how to get by. Some idealistic EWB chapter shows up and upsets the apple cart, upsets the rules, upsets the way things have been for many years. Sure, the thinking part of your brain knows that the change is positive, but darn that hardwiring, you feel threatened. In fact, any significant change generates uncertainty, and a big part of the job of managers, leaders, and in fact, EWB project teams is to minimize threat by increasing the clarity about what's happening, when is it going to happen, how is it going to impact people, sharing that information. Autonomy is the perception of exerting control over your environment. It's the sensation of choice, the amount of freedom you have to do things your own way. This shows up big time in group projects, because the more people you involve, the less independence you have. The offsetting reward in teams is the next domain, which is relatedness. And I know you've all seen, you've all experienced how your connection with your colleagues plays a role in the success of your projects. That's the impact of relatedness, that sense of belonging that you get when you work together with a group that you trust, you feel safe with. You can move mountains, right? It's like an incredibly strong force. But when you first meet people, your brain automatically assesses one thing, friend or foe. Am I going to eat it, or is it going to eat me? And guess what your default is? Your brain always assesses foe first. From a survival mechanism, that makes sense, right? Until you know someone, you better treat them like a foe. Keep yourself safe. So when you go to a community, you're working against a hardwired default assessment. The feeling that you're treated like an outsider, only partly your imagination. There is some merit to it. The final domain is fairness. And we all understand this one. Here's two quick examples. Within EWB, the project process is administered in the same way across all chapters. There's kind of that sense of there's a set of rules and the rules apply to everyone. Within your communities, you seek input from all the stakeholders. You want to make sure that everyone's needs are addressed and that resources are allocated fairly. So that's the review of the 5 social domains. How are you feeling? Anybody feeling threatened? I hope not. But when you do feel threatened, there are things that you can do to stay in the game. You don't have to just get locked in. Just because your brain gives you that initial jerk that you're under threat, you don't have to stay there. There are things you can do. The first thing is be aware of yourself. Learn your own personal patterns. One exercise that's really interesting is consider those 5 domains. Which are the most important to you? Like if you actually had to trade off freedom for fairness, would you? If you had to make a decision between relatedness and status, where would you land? The second is to label. By putting a word, by saying, oh, yeah, I can feel my status, my urge for status kicking in here. That allows you just to separate enough from the experience to really ground yourself and be in the present moment and go, oh, yeah, no, I'm here. That feeling is there. I'm okay. Breathe and calm. Remember that your prefrontal cortex actually loses oxygen when you feel threatened. So when you get that sensation, reoxygenate, breathe deeply, and you'll begin to rejuvenate the thinking part of your brain. Feel your feet on the floor. Notice, hey, I've got a body. I'm not just like these emotions and my brain activity. Move. It's a good way to get unstuck. Even if you're just like standing side to side, you see people sometimes that rock. Those are good techniques to just release things that are stuck in your body. Connect. Reach out to a colleague. Check out, boy, I'm kind of sensing this. Are you getting that too? And reaffirm your common goal. That's a great way to get grounded. And finally, reappraise. Look at the situation with fresh eyes. You look for the reward. You have to consciously choose. Wait a minute, let me look again. Now that I've seen that I might be getting hooked with one of these threat responses, let me look again to see what's really here. Where's the gift? So that's the way it works individually, but I know collaboration is the name of the game at EWB. So I want to offer you these suggestions for how to apply this SCARF model to your projects. And I won't read these, I'll just let you take a look at them, and I'm happy to share my slides if anybody's interested. But I want to conclude by reminding you that as EWB USA seeks to live into its mission and become a learning organization, it's your ability to minimize threats and maximize rewards that will truly create a world in which the communities we serve have the capacity to sustainably meet their basic human needs. Thanks for your attention, and enjoy the rest of the conference.